If you don't do it right, you're going to miss the points. Now, the first one is chapters 12, 13, or 17, 18, I believe. It says, the prompt says, these write-ups are easy, should not take more than 30 minutes or so to do. You're going to do them for the entire book. To get the 30 points possible, you must follow the directions exactly. They should have academic tone and style. That's the first thing I want to talk about. Some of what you guys have turned in is slop. It's disgusting, frankly. It's not a full paragraph. It's not full of details. And if you know anything about summaries, which by this class you should, your summary has to include the major points made and the proof or evidence that support it. That's the job of a summary, as if I didn't have a textbook and I was reading yours. Okay? They should be no less than a page and a half, leaning toward 2, depending on the lengths of the chapter. Identify in your title which chapter you're writing about, and your title should be critical or creative. I should look at your title on your Word document and be like, oh, this is chapter 17, 18, and you named it, fill in the blank, whatever it is, critical or creative. Each chapter highlight write-up must include 3 things, all of which should be clearly identified with a part 1, part 2, and part 3. Some of you did not identify your parts and you're reading it or writing it kind of like an essay. This is not an essay. This is chapter write-ups, telling me that you read the material, you understand the material, and you're engaging with the material. Each part is 10 points, so failing to clearly identify the part puts you at risk of losing the corresponding points. So part 1, a detailed summary of the chapters read. If the chapters are combined, I only need 1 summary for both assigned. A lot of you did 2, which tells me you didn't even read the directions, okay? If the chapters are together, your summary is together in a paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, whatever it takes. This is for 10 points. Part 2, an application of the ideas presented, namely, list 1 term and its definition and find an example of that term. Give an explanation of how your selection matches up with the term you are now showing. Okay, so for example, in the first 2 chapters, you see an example, the term, let's say personification. And I'm reading a poem in that same area of chapter 1, My Papa's Waltz. I think it's the first poem listed. That is a great example. Oh, not personification. Let's say persona. Okay, I changed it. Persona. That poem has persona because obviously the writer is an older gentleman. He is not a little boy, and the poem is written in the voice of a little boy. So that would be a great example of persona. So for part 2, I'm going to say persona. This is when the writer takes on the character of the voice of the narrator of the art piece. And in My Papa's Waltz, persona is present because it's an old man writing from the voice or perspective of a little boy. That tells me that you understand the term and you can find an example of the term. Part 2, that's all I'm looking for. A term and its application with a real life example from your book. Okay. Part 3, a full list. If you have a highlighter, highlight full. A full list of vocabulary terms and their definition from the chapter. This might be blue, bold, italics, or simply discussed in the chapter. The quizzes and tests will be taken from these terms almost exclusively. There's a correlation between how well you do on the quiz and the terms you list in your chapter highlights. To get the 10 points, you need a minimum of 10 terms. Let me tell you guys, for the first 2 chapters, you should be able to find about 21 terms, okay? There's a lot of terms in there, and you need to dig for them. Even though you only need to list 10 to get the 10 points, I want you to find them all and list them all. And do it kind of like a dictionary. Term, definition. Term, out of the book, definition. Term, what's the book say for the definition? You do this and it gives you a study guide. You're going to upload these as a Word document. Okay, please, docs or DOC. MLA format. Creative title, part 1 summary, part 2 term and application, part 3 list of terms and definition from the chapters you read. This is a standing assignment. It's not going to change. And each week they're going to correspond already, you see, with the quiz. I want to talk for a second about the quizzes. I haven't graded them all. I've graded some of them, and thank goodness for you finding errors. Canvas has a mind of its own. And in at least one case, there was a question about allusion, Allusion. The book says this is an indirect reference to historical time, person, or events. And it is indirect. When I say something about Hamlet, I'm making an allusion to Shakespeare. When I say something about Noah's Ark, I'm making an allusion to the Bible. Whatever's mentioned directly is not the allusion. It's whatever's associated with the allusion that is being referenced. And you have to know that association to understand the allusion. Anyways, the quiz says it's a direct reference. That would be false because the book says it's indirect or subtle. And for whatever reason, Canvas was grading the false answers wrong. That has been fixed. If you find other bugs like that and you know for sure that the book has the answer, make sure you're texting me, letting me know so that I can fix it. I'll talk to you soon. Video number 2 is coming up.